Hey everybody, it's the CCJT Amateur Hour where production values go to die. Over there is CC.
And over there is JT.
And if you're new to our experience, we're writers of a certain age who write.
A lot.
So we write. And we like to share our experiences with you. This is, we keep miscounting our episodes.
I think this is 184.
I think this is 184. Let me look it
Yes.
up real quick so I can do it right this time. I think last time we were saying it was 182, and it's actually 183. Yes,
Yes.
you're right. It is 184. So this is episode 184 of our writing experience. And what we like to do is we like to start off with current events, and then we go into, the podcast meat of the thing. And the current events is way over there. Way over there.
Way over there.
This book is up for pre-sale on the 5 platforms: Amazon, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, Google Play, and Apple. So this is up for pre-sale. Good book, good size. Have
Book
fun
one.
with it.
Book 1 of 3.
Right. And soon to follow prequels, because that's what I'm working on in current projects.
Yes.
And in current projects, you're working on...
I'm working on our bat book. So the big ass trip that we took in March and April of this year, along with the mini bat that we took in July of this year. We've written about our experiences traveling around the country, traveling to Canada, things we saw along the way, things that reminded us of writing related things, things we learned about each other, even after 42 years, some of our joint memories together. So it should be an interesting book. We're looking to have that one out in November. So JT has another book that will be out prior to that. Serving Salvation goes live in September.
Yes.
We'll have a book in October, and then we'll have a book in November.
Yep.
Potentially one in December, but probably January, which is the other thing I'm working on, called Battleborn Bride. It's a historical romance. And some of the research I did in our big ass trip, will be factoring into that book.
Yep. So we're having a lot of writing fun. We're delivering a lot of products. All you guys need to do is just buy them and read them. Okay, just buy them. Don't read them.
Buy them, put them on the shelf. They look pretty.
They're pretty, and they're going,
pretty.
wow. And
No,
but for God's sakes, don't read them.
No,
Okay.
we do want you to read them. We're hoping. Well, I mean, otherwise, why don't we just sell a book cover?
Oh, don't give people ideas. Oh man, that would be.
Well, there is something called a low content book, which I've seen people talking about selling low content books on Amazon. And basically that is where you create a cover, like a striking looking cover for something or other. And it's got maybe lined pages inside, so you can use it as a journal or something.
Mm-hmm.
So there are such a thing as low content books, which are supposed to be easy to put out. And I've seen numerous videos of people talking about having done that. I don't tend to watch them because that's not what I'm interested in. I actually like writing the books, but I mean, it's something you can research if you're interested. And I guess it makes money because a lot of people have posted about it. So, something new. You've probably never heard of it, but...
So we kind of flew through the our current events, but...
There was one other thing, or actually there are 2 other things.
Other things.
First of all, I am nominated in the Women in Podcasting Awards for 2024. The voting period is now open, so the link is in previous podcasts. I'll be putting it on social media again. Basically, I am in the books and authors categories because this is our author podcast, and the voting closes October 1st. So it is 1 vote per person. So it's not you can vote as many times as you want. You vote once and that's it. Mm-hmm. And people who have already voted for me, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And the other thing is that last week, I went to a local writers group meeting in Reno. And there were quite a few authors there, probably about 30 in total, I think.
Via the Sierra Arts Foundation.
It's Sierra Arts Foundation, which we have just basically joined the Sierra Arts literary community. So we thank them for putting these things together. These local authors are all very talented. They write in a wide variety of genres. A lot of them are self-published. There are some who are traditionally published, maybe with small presses or actual, the big publishing houses. But last week's meeting was an ice cream social where everyone was invited to bring something to read. There were some questions involved. that were related to the work that was read at the meeting. So I took one of JT's books, Sheriff in Nevada, and read from that because that's one of his more popular books. And since it's a Nevada writing group, we thought that Sheriff was a good representation of Nevada. And it went over well, got a few laughs. Haven't done anything in public like that for a while, so it can be a little nerve-wracking, especially I didn't expect quite that many people to be there. And it's in a very cool space. It's an old building called the Riverside Lofts in Reno, which is right along the Truckee River. It's a gallery space, so it's the main Sierra Arts Foundation space, I believe, in Reno. So it was a lot of fun getting back out there, getting involved with other writers. So not only are we writing, but we are becoming more involved with networking with our local writing community, because Nevada, for some reason, is fertile ground for writers.
Yeah. But I think probably every ground is fertile ground for writers, probably. But it just seems Nevada draws an eclectic line of interests.
Well, and there have been very tongue-tied. There have been some very well-known writers from this area. Currently, it would be Ellen Hopkins, who, what did she write? I don't remember what she wrote now, but it's basically a poetic prose type of situation where it was based on her daughter's experiences, I believe. And I think a lot of people have heard of Ellen Hopkins. She went national. Terry Case?
Yeah, Terry Case. Yes, absolutely.
Also is another big one. Jill Shalvis lives up at Lake Tahoe nearby. I think David Eddings.
Yes, David Eddings is from this area. Yes.
And then of course there's City of Trembling Leaves. I can't think of the author's name.
Robert Laxalt?
No. Oh, Robert Laxalt obviously is a huge one. Travels with My Royal and the Basque Hotel and things like that. And then I mentioned the City of Trembling Leaves. I cannot think of the author's name at the moment. Very big in the early 20th century. So this area has long been a fertile ground for authors.
Yeah, don't forget that Mark Twain started using his nom de plume here, and he was here for 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm. And Walter Van Tilburg Clark.
There we go.
Yes. But anyway, Mark Twain was up in Virginia City for 2 or 3 years during the gold rush, trying to, make it strike it big himself while trying to write about, rather extravagant stories. And he started using Mark Twain here. Mm-hmm. He started publishing under his pen name here before Samuel Clemens and Mark Twain. But the point I'm making is we latched onto him as quickly as we could, and we're naming schools after the dude.
Well, and California does the same thing, because a lot of people are familiar with the celebrated jumping frog of Calaveras County, which was huge. Yeah. And there is a town in California called Twain Harte, which was named for Mark Twain and Bret Harte. But also Mark Twain will be factoring into the book that I'm working on as well through his brother, Orion Clemens, because Orion was the reason that Mark Twain came to Nevada in the first place.
Other than the gold.
But he was having issues where he was when his brother came out here to become territorial secretary for Nevada. He came along with him. He writes about that journey in his Roughing It, I believe. Yeah. And so that will be factoring into the book I'm writing as well.
Yeah, you come to a podcast for writing and you get a history lesson. We do everything here for you folks. This is all true. Mark Twain is really big for this northern Nevada, so we grab as much as we can. Yep. The current events actually went down longer than I thought, because we do have a few things going on. From my perspective, I'm just grinding. Paragraph Factory, which I'm just
that's tickled. A great one.
I'm tickled by that. Saw that on social media and totally stealing it. Paragraph Factory, and CC being the CEO and the public face, is getting out there and doing that kind of stuff, which I'm greatly appreciative of, because I'm not really good at being a public face.
Despite being on camera every week.
Okie dokie. We're going to dive into the gist of things, unless you have something else you want to talk about.
Can't think of anything right now.
Okay.
And we have an interesting topic.
We do have an interesting topic that we've been thinking about for a while now. A while meaning overnight, because we just came up with the idea yesterday. But that's how we do things here at the podcast. Production values go to die.
And it kind of keeps things fresh, because if we're pondering it for a week, then by the time we talk about it, it's a little bit,
And
whatever.
we overthink
We
things, and
do.
we just.
So if we come up with the idea fresh, then we tend to actually be more excited about it.
This is for people that are just listening to the podcast. I'm doing exciting
La,
hand
la,
gestures.
la, la. Jazz hands.
Jazz hands. Okay. So if you look at our library of a dozen books, we have pretty much a dozen books out there.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see a range of things. You're going to see a range of topics. My first published book was a book by a veteran who got into politics.
Kind of a political thriller, maybe.
Kind of a political thriller, more of introspection. I want to say an arc. Something that I can't remember. Character arc where he improved himself, and that happened more than once in my books. And if you continue across there, you'll see that there's a soft romance, the one that Cece and I wrote together. You'll see just
science fiction now.
Science fiction now. You'll see it's just crime fiction, and a book with very harsh sex scenes, and so it goes down the line. So we were talking about it yesterday, and then afterwards I thought about it and I went, yeah, wow.
You have a problem.
I have a problem.
But I have one.
Yeah, and so are there subjects that writers will not write about?
And we're not talking about writers as a group. We are talking about specific writers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically, is there a genre you won't write about? Is there an element that you won't include in your stories? That type of thing. It's like, is there some hard and fast, no, I won't do that.
And it's been difficult for me to nail down to a specific genre or anything like that. As you can tell just by looking at the books, just looking at all the books that I've written, and I'm still struggling with it, and I'm sort of skewing towards science fiction right now, but that probably won't last because I got the attention span of a day fly.
Well, and I'm interested to hear your answer because you know mine already, but it's since you have addressed some pretty harsh, like you said, there are harsh sex scenes and there's some violence that made me actually go, where did that come from?
Yeah, no.
And then
one book has child abuse.
Yeah.
One book has, and believe me, I regret this, folks, and she already knows what I'm going to say, the death of a dog.
Boy, did that get people upset.
That got me upset. And a very quick story, and y'all have heard this before, is I wrote this book, I wrote this scene, I edited this scene, I contemplated the scene, I kept the scene because I felt that it provided gravitas to the book. And if I were to do it again, I probably would do it again because
it's character death, basically.
For the kind of book that it is, you have to kind of do it. But every time I read that damn scene, I start bawling. I just start crying because I cannot handle pet deaths. I cannot handle animal deaths because of my upbringing. And the fact that I did it to this day just boggles my mind. And I'm probably never going to do it again. I cannot see myself doing it again, but I can't promise that.
And after all the feedback you've gotten, I mean, most of our stuff, people may or may not read it. If they do, we don't really hear about it. This case, there was a lot of pushback. It's like, why? Why did you do that? And we will say that in our soft romance, there is a beloved dog, perfectly safe. So if you don't want to do the pet death, then you can do the other one where the dog is actually a pretty large part of the book. And,
but it's
very sweet.
But I can't. But and I've tried to convince myself that I wouldn't do something like that again. But here comes the but.
Yes.
If you want to respect the book, if you want to respect the characters, if you want to respect the plot, and most importantly, if you want to respect the reader's investment in the book, writers have to make tough decisions.
Now that you mention it, so I talked about having read from this book last week.
Right.
And on the first page, you mentioned the character, the dog. So people get invested in this character pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it does make sense for the story for this to happen. It's not just thrown in there for, I don't know,
whatever
shits and giggles. It's like it is something that makes sense for the story. Especially in the genre that's going on with all of the things that are happening in the story, it makes sense. But you meet this character on the first page of the book, and by the time this happens, it becomes a very emotional experience. And that's really, you want to invoke emotion in your readers.
Right.
But that can go two ways. You
Yeah.
know, they can be very happy about the emotions you're evoking, and they can also be very unhappy and let you know about it.
So I'm going to just say up front that I am not going to promise not to do something like that again, because again, you got to respect the genre, you got to respect the investment, you got to respect the characters, you got to respect the plot, and you've got to most of all respect the reader's investment of time and money into the book. So I feel that for pet deaths, animal deaths, I'm not going to swear off it. What is something that you will probably never write about?
So for me, that would be straight horror.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about the type of horror that's along the lines of maybe the movie Saw, or, you know, something where it gets graphically gory, violent. What is that? There's a book called, I believe, Devil in the White City. It's about a serial killer that, you know, that type of really dark type of thing that can happen in real life. People are drawn to, yes, Devil in the White City, which I have never read.
Eric Larson.
Yes, but an episode of, I believe, Supernatural,
Mm-hmm.
the TV show, referred to this because it dealt with supernatural issues, and that type of horror, I can't do it because my brain tends to keep going over and over and over things that I'm writing, and that would not be good for my mental health. So in the past, when I was younger, I did, you know, I read Stephen King. I watched The Exorcist, you know, much later, so it wasn't as fresh and terrifying as it was when it first came out. I saw things like Poltergeist. I saw, you know, the Amityville Horror. I used to watch things like that, and they bothered me, but not to the point that they do now. And I could never watch anything like the Friday the 13th movies, Halloween, those type of movies where it's like they're coming after you with a knife or something. Saw, definitely out. So that type of horror writing will not happen. There might be horror elements. I have a 5-book paranormal series planned that will be not graphically violent or anything, but it might skew a little, you know, scary, hopefully slightly, but it's not something, I have to be careful about what I write because my mind goes over and over it so much that it's really, it can affect my mental health.
Yeah, you don't want to be doing that.
No.
But there are writers amongst us, artists amongst that, who will sacrifice themselves for that you know, that goal, and I've never quite understood that. But
well, it sells too because that type of horror is very popular.
Yeah.
People love it. There are people who are into dark horror, not just around the Halloween season, but all the time, that are really skewing dark, gothic, you know, and that's fine. I know people, you know, we need to find things in life that stimulate us to keep us from falling into the doldrums. Like we've kind of been in the doldrums a little bit lately, and we have
also
to get
a
out
little
of
bit
it.
of escapism because
Yes.
there's a lot to escape from right now.
Yes, but for me, that type of escapism isn't really escapism because life is already hard and scary and bad things happen, and I try not to think about it too much because, like I said, it's not good for my mental health.
Okay, so for me, and this answer is probably going to surprise CC because we actually wrote one of these books together, but I would never write a romance book. I would never write a straight romance novel. And the reason CC it probably is giving me the look is not only did we write the book together, but she knows that romance is intertwined with what I write.
But I get what you mean. You're talking like Harlequin type
Now,
of
you know,
romance.
it's like, you know, boy meets girl, you know.
Yeah.
Boy owns a Christmas tree lot. Girl is a big city girl who's come to visit home and notices the bakery needs help, is going out of business. So, you know, that kind of thing. Because and I'm not saying that because I don't respect those writers, because those writers have put a lot of time and invested a lot of time and energy to do that. Though I wonder sometimes if it's just a machine AI just plugging out those, popping out those plots.
Well, as someone who has tried to actually write to Harlequin standards back when I was doing a lot of traditional publishing attempts, I did get the Harlequin standards, and it is a lot harder than you think to write formula fiction, because you have to find enough of a difference to catch people's attention, and you have to be able to do it in such a way where it hits all the story beats and the tropes. So it sounds like you can just, now with AI, it's a totally different thing, but people, it can be very difficult to write that kind of formula. And I can understand why you don't want to write it, but romance does factor very heavily into your stories. It's always a strong subplot.
Yeah, but in just doing a Harlequin type thing, it's I have to be interested in what I'm writing, and I have read Harlequin, and again, I don't mean it, any disrespect to the folks, but it's hard to read a Harlequin romance for me with my eyes continuously rolling back in the head, doing one of these things. I just, dude, you've got a degree from Dartmouth. Why are you managing a Christmas tree farm?
Because both of us got degrees. You are not currently doing what you have your master's degree in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
No.
I went general studies, so.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with general studies.
General studies got me my job, but.
Yeah, same here. General studies got me my job, but it's.
The thing is, you can have a degree in something, get that degree, and then realize that's not really what you want to do with your life. So I can understand going to the Christmas tree farm route.
The funny thing is when we saw Christmas tree farms.
Yes, along our drive. I think we were in Oregon or
Washington. We saw Christmas trees, and we just sort of looked at that, and God is my witness, our eyes rolled. It's like, oh God, they're real.
But then we started actually making up stories as we were going. And this is what writers do. We make up stories. We may never actually write them, but part of the thing we were doing as we were driving was making up stories about this Christmas tree farm because it was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. So, again, not out of disrespect.
No.
There are writers who would look. I certainly know that there are writers who would look upon the stuff that I've done and again roll their eyes too. So, it's just doing straight romance. It's
well, and both writing and reading are very subjective because, like I said, I won't touch hard horror. But give me a Harlequin. I mean, I can devour one of the traditional straight Harlequins in probably a couple hours.
Yeah.
That's my quickest read. And if I want, it's like having a piece of candy. Just pop in a piece of candy. And it's a quick endorphin high because you're getting the happy ending, at least happily for now. So I understand completely where you're coming from, but I also understand the appeal of them.
Yeah. Someday, if I ever have a space in my production schedule, and my production schedule right now is backed all the way up.
Years out.
It's out. But if I ever do that, I may just pop out a romance just for the exercise
Which
of it.
you just said you would never do.
But I would just to see what it would look like with the J.T. Hume touch.
That would be interesting.
A romance with the J.T. Hume touch would be.
Now watch. He's going to take this as a challenge, and one of the next things he writes will be a romance.
No, not what I've got. Not what I've got.
Okay, I know you. You're going to have an idea, and you're going to be like, "Oh no."
Okay, so this is Verboten. Okay, so we got horror, we got romance.
Yeah.
Boy, that's a range for you.
Well, and I think
very quickly, one more genre.
One more genre that I won't write?
Yes.
Oh, I'm not sure about romantasy.
What is romantasy?
So it's romance fantasy
mashup.
Yeah. The fantasy worlds, I am in awe of people who create these fantasy worlds. Our daughter writes urban fantasy and has created a universe, an extensive universe that there is so much time and effort that goes into creating the world itself that I don't think I have the attention span. You talked about our genres jumping around. I think it's not that I wouldn't want to write it, but I think I have so many different things going on in my head that sitting down and focusing on creating a world, like a fantasy or a romantasy world, I don't know that I could do it. I don't think I have
Yeah.
the attention span.
I think, and very quickly, I agree that fantasy is a very complex, next level kind
Yeah.
of world building
Yep.
that that would have to years would have to be devoted
Yes.
to it, and that does not interest me. And perhaps, and I don't mean that to denigrate again,
No,
denigrate
no.
anybody, because
I
you're
admire
looking
it.
at a guy that read his J.R.R. Tolkien and
Yep.
other fantasy books, and I have the
Robert Jordan, like
Pardon
the
me?
Wheel of Time books. Robert Jordan.
Stephen Donaldson.
Oh, Stephen Donaldson.
Right.
No, that was The White Ring.
Oh, that was that was
Robert Jordan, I think, was The Wheel of Time.
yeah. No, I never read Robert Jordan.
Oh, okay.
That kind of world building and that kind of just the simple task of keeping names straight. I already have that problem. But there's a lot going on in fantasy worlds with the world building, the universe building, the magic building, the all of that. And so the fact that our daughter has taken that on and that other writers have taken that on, I have a world of respect for. But I agree that fantasy, no.
Well, and that becomes a lifetime. Basically, your career is your series, and that is what happened with our daughter, because she started writing these books fairly young. She was writing these stories in her teens, and going into adulthood. It was just at the cusp of self-publishing, where self-publishing was still considered a taboo. She did try to publish traditionally as a teen, but was still polishing her work. But her series has remained pretty consistent and has had a following, because she hit at a time where was just before really the explosion of self-publishing, where she got into a group of people on the Kindle boards, and that helped her promote. She did very well for a few years, and then there was some burnout because of her production schedule. She was releasing a book every 6 to 8 weeks. So there was so much going on in her universe that she just kept cranking them out, and they were just coming to her like that. And she's actually about to release a hardcover version of her first urban fantasy novel that she's doing a Kickstarter with. So, obviously we're proud of her and the things that she's done, but I've seen what kind of intense planning and, background and just maintaining all these story elements to make sure that the world makes sense, how it can be very draining, and it's hard, like you said, to keep track of the characters. And so I don't think I personally have the stamina to be able to do that.
Well, and there's also the science fiction artists, the science fiction masters, that
Yes.
and one of them being Arthur C. Clarke, and he has
Yep.
two famous quotes that I brought up because it just reminded me. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Right.
So you get to a certain point in science fiction, it becomes a fantasy.
True.
And the other one is magic is just science we don't understand yet. So both of those are Arthur C. Clarke, are attributed to Arthur C. Clarke, and they're both true, that you get to a certain point in the science fiction universe, and Foundation is the perfect example of that. The Foundation series is which I read in high school. It becomes a point where it stops being science fiction and becomes kind of magic, and vice versa, which is a fascinating genre to write in.
Yes.
And something that maybe I'll aspire to when I just have time and just don't want to do anything else, but that doesn't seem to be likely. But right now, I'm in agreement with you that fantasy, due to its complexity and due to its complexity and the time it takes and its intensity, is probably a big lift that we'll probably do in another life at this rate.
And the thing is that romantasy in particular is very popular right now. So if it was something that I was doing just for trying to make a living at it or something, I might try to do it. And maybe if I was back in my 20s or 30s again, I might even consider it. And I did try to write some science fiction at that time, but as you age and as you change, and your interests change, your attention span changes.
Well, there's less magic and things, and there's more cynicism.
That is true.
There's
We
less
have
magic
become
and more
much more
cynicism.
cynical.
Okay, so what about the writers who listen to this? Do you have any feedback on this? Are there genres which you absolutely dive headfirst into, but are there genres that you will not even touch? Which again we totally respect. So give us some feedback here. What we've pretty much agreed on is for myself, it's probably.
Straight romance.
Straight romance for you. It's going to be straight horror.
Yep.
To the extreme, and then we mutually agree on fantasy for so many different reasons. So this has been an interesting discussion, and we'd love to hear some feedback on this.
Definitely, because I know there are people out there who say they would write nothing but horror because that's really what they enjoy, and that's fine. I don't have any problems with that. I just can't personally handle it. So it is fascinating to hear what other people find interesting, what they enjoy. Obviously, horror is a multi-billion-dollar industry, so it is something that is popular with large groups of people.
And the nice thing about writing is it's not a binary choice. Obviously, you don't have to write this or that. You can write this, and often we do. Okay, let's take this to the end of this podcast broadcast, and think if there's anything else out there other than we forgot to mention that today is Sunday, August 11th. Already. And we have some adventures coming up in September, which may interfere with our podcast schedule, but we're still talking about that. But we'll let you know as we get closer. And then we are thinking about next year's travels already, and we're that's going to be kind of fun, also kind of stupid, but that's what we do.
After having said that we are not doing another big ass trip, what are we thinking about?
Doing another big ass trip. Okay. Anything else that we want to chat about real quick?
Probably a lot of things.
Yeah.
But not
if
right
you are
now.
a mental health professional and you're looking for some pro bono work to earn some hours. Okay. Anyway.
Well, I think we're like many other people where our interests are kind of all over the place because there is so much to consume right now and I think that's one of the reasons we write in the different genres we do is because we see story ideas everywhere.
We do what we do because we can and we will. Okay.
Yes. That's a great quote.
Yeah. Don't ask me to repeat it because I have no idea what I said. All right. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We hope that your week is good. We'll be back here same next week, same bat time, same bat channel. So to speak. And I so dated myself. But obviously,
not to say that it will be the same bat trip, but
but over there's CC.
And over there's JT.
Y'all take care of yourself. Be careful and be kind to yourself.
Bye-bye.